that 85% of Americans are actually magnesium deficient, and that half of Americans have less than half of the magnesium they need. So here we have a supplement that has something like about 200 milligrams of magnesium in an ionic form. So this is my supposition, and it's just speculation, why we see energy boosts very rapidly with that product. Now, normally the recommended dietary allowance of magnesium is about 400 milligrams, but that's 400 milligrams in food, and there's only about a third of that is absorbed. Somewhere between a third and a half of the magnesium in food is absorbed. So if it's ionic, that 200 ionic might be worth 600 in food. And not only that, I was very delighted to see the experiments done up here today with the solubility that were shown up there. You put a drop of that ionic magnesium into water, and that is immediately dispersed into every nook and cranny of that glass of water. It's everywhere there. And the person can drink that. It doesn't have to be digested. It doesn't have to be broken down. The entire coating of the intestine has these little finger-like, tiny microscopic finger-like projections on it. And that gets completely bathed with magnesium in solution, just ready to be transported across that. So for someone who has a magnesium deficiency, which participates in 400 enzyme systems, and they only have half of that magnesium, remember our rate limiting chart? Well, if you supply the other half of that magnesium suddenly in a highly absorbable form, then you have 400 enzyme systems that just started to work again at optimum ability, and you can get a rapid change. Now, it's possible that some of the rapid effect from this is from some of those trace elements. Maybe that person hasn't seen manganese in their diet in 20 years because it disappeared from the agricultural food. And maybe the small amount of manganese or the small amount of some of those might make a difference in there. I'm not sure. I also suspect that that's short-term. Long-term taking of a broad-spectrum seawater ionic supplement does actually help restore, even though the daily dose is small, if you need it, the amount you have goes into storage. So when you take the thing long-term, you're gradually building up those small trace element things, even though there's only a small amount in the product. The second case, there is a new concept in natural medicine developed in the United States over the last 10 years that's called the leaky gut syndrome. Can I see a list of hands? Has anybody heard of that? Yeah, oh good. The basic pathology here is that something has been done to damage the barrier of the gastrointestinal tract. Now, you know, on one side of the gastrointestinal tract you have the body, and on the other side, what do you have? You have fecal matter. And that barrier is very important because you have bacteria and putrefactive matter and everything in the digestive tract that has to stay on that side. If it gets into the body, it's a poison. You know, this is stuff by sanitation standards. We try to keep it very, very far away from us, but there it is, just the other side of a layer of skin inside our gut. So if something injures gut permeability, that can create terrible diseases in the human body. And this idea, and it's growing in the medical literature, is that pain medications, steroid drugs, alcohol, stress, food allergies, those would be the big five, can damage gut permeability, and then you get poisons flowing into the system, and then you can get terrible diseases, the worst of which are autoimmune diseases. The influx of poison so confuses and disturbs the body's immune system that it starts attacking its own tissues. So this is a very seriously ill woman, and she had systemic lupus erythematosus. And this is the worst of the autoimmune diseases. Most of them won't kill you, they just hurt you. But systemic lupus can attack your kidneys, cause kidney failure. It can attack the central nervous system. It can attack the heart muscle. It can attack vital areas of the body. So she was very sick. She'd had it for about 4 years, and she was taking anti-lupus drugs. And so one day the doctors detected cancer in her, and they told her that the drug she was taking had caused cancer. But if she stopped taking the drug, she'd die of the lupus. But if she kept taking the drug, she'd die of the cancer. So that's about as sick as you can get in the modern world. Is you're going to die if you do, and you die if you don't. She was a religious person, and she started praying. She didn't know what else to do. She started praying. She felt guided. She was guided to the library, and she read about herbalism and nutrition and this. And on her own, she stopped taking all the drugs and substituted herbs to treat her lupus. And on her own, she cured the cancer. The cancer went away when she stopped taking the drugs. But then she came to me, And I treated her for about a year after that. And, we made progress. She wasn't taking drugs anymore. She'd have an occasional flare-up of the lupus, in which case she'd usually fast, or she would, watch out for foods that would induce the leaky gut syndrome, and so on. At a fairly advanced time, she was just saying, I just says, well, what are your actual symptoms? What's bothering you? And she said, I'm just so tired all the time. She was surviving. She wasn't dying. The lupus wasn't killing her, but she was just tired all the time, right? So I suggested she take, a Great Salt Lake broad spectrum Ionic mineral supplement, and she lived in another state, and she called me 5 days later. She was in her early 40s, and she said, I haven't had this much energy since I was 16 years old. The reason I mention this case is because she had intestinal damage. She had malabsorption from her intestine. She could eat a good diet, and she was eating a very good diet, and she could even take supplements, but her intestines were so worn and damaged and traumatized that she couldn't absorb the nutrients. To me, this was demonstration that for a person with impaired digestion, as the root of their problem. This could be any number of diseases for people who, the doctors in the crowd, celiac disease, a gluten allergy, disrupts the absorption at the gut. Many other things disrupt absorption at the gut. And then the person gets sick, not from the disruption at the gut, but they're starving out in their tissues because they can't absorb through the intestine. So for people with impaired digestion now, I invariably have them take a liquid seawater trace element supplement, and they always feel better. The dissolved minerals, dissolving and diffusing in the water, can simply interact with the intestinal barrier better and be absorbed better. Now I have a final case study here, and this woman, I'm afraid that the person is going to hear the tape, so I want to protect confidentiality, so I'm going to change one or two facts, but they won't change the essence of it, okay? And she came in with a very strange disease. And the disease was, I said, what's your chief complaint? And she says, well, I have ringing in my ears. Well, and I'm going, now wait a minute, I'm just a nutritionist here. I don't know what I can do for that. And he says, what else? And she says, I have blurred vision. I say, oh my gosh, neurological problems, this is out of my ballpark. And then I say, what else? And she says, I have complete indigestion and pain in my digestive tract. And I say, what else? And she says, well, I have a broken leg. She was I knew she had a broken leg, but I was taking her case, And she said her broken leg wouldn't heal. She broke her leg, and it had been 4 weeks, or 3 weeks, and the two halves were apart, and the orthopedist had it casted, and they took an x-ray, and it wasn't knitting together. And so, boy, this is one you want to just throw up your hands and go out the window. Well, I just did a little bit of homework. I asked her what medication she was taking, and the whole history was she had broken her leg, so she took pain medication. After we did the homework, the ringing in the ears and the blurred vision were side effects of the pain medication, as was the digestive tract disturbance. The pain medications damaged her gut, and then she couldn't absorb nutrients, so she couldn't get the nutrients in needed to heal the broken bone. This is how I assessed the problem. We did some things. Well, she stopped taking pain medication, and we gave her something for the herbal pain. And we gave her the Ionic liquid trace elements. We gave her some homeopathic remedies, actually they call them Schlusser's cell salts, which help assimilation of minerals and help the knitting of bones traditionally. And we gave her an herbal formula to heal the gut. Herbs can't do miracles, but herbs can heal inflamed tissue. That's one thing they can do. So we gave her a traditional gut healing formula to improve the assimilation. Then we gave her the materials in the form of ionic minerals to go across. And when she had told her orthopedist she was going to try to use natural medicine, they laughed at her. Because they were going to do surgery and put a pin in that bone to hold the bones together. And she went back to them a week later, and the thing had started to grow. And she said the orthopedists were scratching their head. They'll say, well, I'll be darned. How did that happen? Right? So that's the last case. It's really been a pleasure being here. Yeah.